Hello, people. How's it going? Welcome to stream. Welcome. Hope everyone's had a fantastic Friday. Everyone's doing fantastically well. Everything's safe and sound and healthy and all that's above. Everyone's feeling great. And today on the channel, we're gonna do something I have never done before. I am worried, let's just put it that way, because you never know what can happen in these types of situations and in these types of circumstances. But we are going to do a call-in show. So basically, in the span within of next hour and 10 minutes or something like that, hopefully some of you will jump on. We're going to talk about Arsenal, Arteta, this season, future of the club, Arteta's new contract, everything that's surrounding Arsenal during the season, and maybe a tiny bit in the past, and of course also in the future. So smash the like button if you haven't already. Subscribe if you are new around here, and if anyone wants to jump on, just let me know. I will drop the link in the chat, because if the chat is moving, some of you might miss it. So let me know, people. Let me know. Big up, Money. Hope you're doing well today. I'm looking as well. I'm scared, but I'm looking forward to this as well. Hopefully you're doing great today. Big up about the Arsenal season. Gyökeres signing worked, 24 goals, sold the striker issue, 100%. 100% sold the striker issue, and the people wanted to sell him a few weeks back. Imagine that. Yeah, of course. You can come on. There are no restrictions of this. Let's just put it that way. The link should be in the chat. If you want to join, just jump on. I will add you. We can talk about this. No issues, no strings attached, no nothing. As long as you have camera, microphone, hopefully 18 plus, lol. And well, you don't cuss too much. Let's just put it that way. Hopefully all that good stuff is within the realms of all that stuff. Let's just put it that way. And big up, Money. Big up. Hope you are doing well. Hope you're doing well today. How's things?
Yes, good evening, Rob. Wonderful to be on your channel for the first time. And I think if this is your first call-in show, then I am officially the first one to hop on. So very proud to make a little bit of history on your behalf. Thank you again.
Big up for jumping on, because I had no expectations that anyone would, to be honest. So it's a bit of a risky one. The first call-in show ever. It's something different from panel shows sometimes that happen on the channel. So I thought, why not? Especially at this time of the season when we are on top of the league with big chances of winning a Champions League final. Everything seems fine and dandy and all this stuff. So why not? Let's just put it that. Why not? How do you feel about this? 4 games to go this weekend. West Ham. Champions League final at the end of May. How are you looking at this? We're going to win the double?
Yeah. I don't think we'll win the double, to be honest with you, but I am just going to get back to you. Hold on. Yeah. I was actually in the chat for an Aston Villa call-in show, because I did do a watch-along for the Europa League semi-final last night on my friend's channel. Shout out to Hanno Sports Hub with Hanno Trollope, a good friend of mine from South Africa, don't you know? And so to answer your question, Rob, listen, it's an exciting time to be in, but let's not forget that it wasn't too long ago that there was some talk about how, we were running on fumes and we probably would have run out of steam. I think the Everton result probably gave us a bit of a second win, and we now feel a little bit more confident. The only thing that really angers me, though, is the talk of, Arteta being effectively offered a new contract before the end of the season. Now, you would wait until the end of the season, see how things go, and then decide to offer him a new contract. But I've been saying on various shows, including Shane Gooner's Irish Breakfast chat, shout out to our Irish friend, by the way, that it could very well be that with the surety of a new contract guaranteed, we could very well end up, choking it. As far as the Champions League is concerned, if anyone has any ideas that we are going to beat a PSG team who are determined to leave an amazing legacy by winning 2 Champions Leagues back-to-back, which not very many teams have done, mind you, in the past, they've got another thing coming, because they showed, obviously in the first leg at the Parc des Princes, their attacking the prowess was more on display, even if defensively they weren't quite able to stop Bayern from fighting back. But it was more of a defensive masterclass at the Allianz Arena, because they knew that they couldn't really afford to allow Bayern to stay on top, or at the very least have too many chances to score some goals, despite the fact that Munich had more of the possession. I don't remember Matvei Sapunov having to make too many big saves. So PSG have basically shown that they are a team that can attack and can also defend in equal measure. I just think that, with all due respect to us, they are now effectively the most complete team in the Champions League. And I think Bayern are going to look back on their first leg performance at the Parc des Princes and say, you know what? We tried to, keep the high line to make sure we had the transition, the attacking play kept going, but we kept getting caught out on the wings. And if Arteta is stupid enough to start both Benjamin White and Ricardo Calafiori in the final, then I'm telling you, he's going to ask for a lot of trouble. And Calafiori, in fact, against Atletico Madrid in the second leg, was literally, getting cooked like, he was getting cooked more than al dente pasta, if that makes any sense. And so that's the thing. In contrast to Aston Villa, and I will talk about them because, they reached the final yesterday after a magnificent campaign where they have literally been the best and most consistent team in the tournament, although they just finished them just behind Olympique Lyonnais in the group stage. But Lyon actually went out in the second round. And Villa are now in the final under Unai Emery, and they demolished Forest 4-0. Tactical masterclass from Unai Emery. Who would have thought that starting Victor Lindelof in the double midfield pivot would prove to be a masterstroke? But then now Arteta's done the same thing with Lars Lewis-Skelly. I just wonder if Arteta is in any way a younger version of Unai Emery. And so, if people love Arteta so much, why should they hate Unai Emery? Emery very nearly won the Europa League in his first season with us, I think so. As far as the league is concerned, it is in our hands, and I will be brief as possible. It is in our hands, thanks to Everton. I just wonder if Unai Emery's decision to tank that Tottenham game at Villa Park might have played into West Ham's hand, because West Ham now know that because they're in the relegation zone, they cannot afford to lose, and that they have to come at us all guns blazing and make sure that they trying to put a beating on us. And the ironic thing is that although we do have a fine record against them on their home turf, at their home stadium, form goes out of the window when it comes to clashes like this, where we're challenging for the title and they're trying to avoid relegation. So this could potentially be, to use the phrase, a six-pointer in many ways, because if we win, it gives us that belief that we'll go forward. I can relax because I know we'll thrash relegated Burnley, and then Crystal Palace are going to be, in full preparation mode for their Conference League final. But if we draw or lose, heaven forbid, then, we could find ourselves in trouble once again, because all City will need to do is make sure they take out their anger about the Everton game by beating Brentford, by beating Crystal Palace, and of course they face an Aston Villa side that I don't think they've ever beaten City at the Etihad. Maybe they have, but that was a long time ago. So Sunday's game is going to be very, very key. I'm hopeful that we can get the league over the line, but as far as the Champions League is concerned, I just think it's a step too far. I know that funnier things have happened, but Luis Enrique is one of the best coaches in the world for a reason. We all know that Arteta isn't really fit to lace his boots, and let's be honest, we've had such good fortune to make the final of this tournament. I think after a certain point, your luck has to run.
Yeah. For me, I've been saying this for quite a while, and I'm not so sure how this will play into all of this, but in my experience, like most of the time, pretty much all the time as well, the team that wins it all tends to lose at least one game during these type of tournaments. Usually it's in the group stages, from my experience. Yes. And so far we haven't lost. So my biggest worry is that at this stage we cannot afford to lose. You either win or, well, you're screwed. You have lost and you're out and you're done. You're not going to win it. And right now everything is riding on that. And to be honest, switching it to Premier League, City play tomorrow before us because we play on Sunday. And if they beat Brentford, again, that will put some extra pressure on us. some way or shape or form, it's gonna affect us, no matter how you look at it. And for me, the question as well for Sunday is how much emotionally this Champions League semi-final has taken out of the team. Because even if you physically are there, if you're mentally and psychologically you're not prepared fully and you feel like somewhat lackluster, it could play a very cruel trick on us. And it could be like a double whammy at the end of the day. City win and we will draw points. And then, well, everything's up for grabs, so to speak, once again. And nobody wants to see that. But saying that, I think we are in the most opportunistic spot, so to speak, because City still have Bournemouth away, if I'm not mistaken, even, which definitely won't be walk in the park. Well, hopefully, let's just put it that way. And Aston Villa, well, I think Emery again, he might rest players for Europa League final. If I'm not mistaken, that game also is not far after the Premier League ends, so it's kind of it's like there are some pros and cons to everything overall, but it definitely is going to be very interesting how everything develops and how everything just plays itself out, because no matter how you look at it in Premier League at the moment, it's our league to lose, because as long as we win everything, all the games, well, we're fine. And can we do it on paper? Yes. In reality, that we will have to wait and see. Because as well, like we look fantastic. Skelly in the midfield, Zubimendi dropped, Odegaard dropped, Havertz not playing. We just look better. Let's just put it that way. We look better. That goes without saying. But again, with Arteta, you just know that as soon as player hits form, he holds the bench, and at some point, he reverts back. Because we have seen Arsenal play attacking football over the course of these last few seasons, in the 22-23 season, for short periods of time, so to speak. Few games here or there, and then all of a sudden, it's back to so-called basics with Arteta, back to the usual business with Zubimendi, Odegaard, pragmatic, stubborn, slow, and I don't want to see that. I absolutely don't, because this switch up here, back and front, front to back, and all this, again, it's gonna mess up with the players. It's gonna mess with their heads, their expectations, and everything, and it is a worry. Let's just put it that way. And I know I'm worried. Maybe I'm sound like I'm worrying too much, but the Arsenal PTSD, no matter how you look at it, over the course of last 22 years since we won the Premier League, well, it's there, isn't it? Like, no matter how you look at it.
I agree completely. And, what really made me quite happy about the semi-final second leg is that he resisted the temptation to go back to type, and he did select Eze and put Lewis Skelly in the midfield. I was still worried, as I mentioned, that Benny Blanco and Ricky Ricardo ended up getting picked. But he showed that he was willing to end up going for it. My only issue is, against West Ham, what type of team he will put out will probably end up determining in some perverse way what kind of result we get from the game. Now, I don't want to give West Ham too much credit, because, they are where they are because they haven't quite been able to get it together. And they have had some good results in some recent times, but the consistency has just been lacking in many ways. And although Nuno Santo has got them fighting hard, you just think that it will be between them and Tottenham for that final position on who gets relegated to the Championship. Maybe Arteta's realised it's now or never. He can't keep going back to the players he's trusted. And this is the thing about the best managers, Rob, because, the best managers are good man managers who do put faith in players. But when it comes to the crunch, they have to make some ruthless decisions as to who plays and who doesn't. And Carlo Ancelotti is the best example of this. I think when he won his final Champions League competition, I don't remember if, it might not have been his last one. It might have been the one before in 2022 when I think they had Liverpool in the final. I don't quite remember. But Marco Asensio, who actually ended up coming to Aston Villa on loan to play from PSG, was at Real Madrid for a few years and was doing okay at the beginning of the season with Real. I think it was in 2022. But he lost a bit of form, he lost a bit of his way, and so, Ancelotti took the decision to take him out of the lineup and start, fielding a team that would start winning things, coming to the crunch at the end of the season. And that's exactly what happened. And Asensio didn't really see too many more minutes. And not too long afterwards, he was sold to PSG, and then he joined Aston Villa on loan, and Aston Villa wanted to sign him permanently, but that couldn't happen. And now he's with Fenerbahce. But Ancelotti knows how to manage players, when to keep faith with some of his stars who have done well for him, and when not to. So I just hope that at the end of the season, we will start to see a little bit of a cull where some of the players who have been playing for us over the years but have flattered to the sea end up being sent on their merry way. I don't want to see Ben White ever again. I think Kai Havertz's wages need to be taken off the wage bill ASAP. I think Martin Odegaard would probably be best suited going back to play in Spain because, let's face it, whenever we play him, it's as if we have 10 men in our team. There were some patches when he was good, but those patches have been few and far between. But in Victor Gyökeres, in Ebery Eze, and in a few others, we actually have a decent spine for the future. And, with Declan Rice being captain, that would be the best way forward. I don't want to see Gabriel Magalhaes being touted as a captain. I think that bloke is, a little bit too petulant and a bit arrogant at times. Sometimes it can be okay, but other times he comes across as really, off-putting and irritating. But we do have a good spine that can take us forward, either with Arteta if we win something under him, or under a new manager who can get us over the line. But these next 4 games in our season, these final 4 games are going to determine, not only what happens, but also what the fans will think of him. Because let me tell you something right now, Rob. If, heaven forbid, we go on to bottle this league by doing poorly against West Ham and not even succeeding against Burnley or Crystal Palace, fans are going to start to realise, finally, that this bloke just isn't it. And the knock-on effect it can have on us going into the Champions League final cannot be underestimated because in as much as PSG have also struggled this season in the league, they are still in pole position to win the league with the other teams, just fading away at the worst possible time. But with us, having not, I know Kirpin thinks that we do have the mentality to do it, and maybe, that's down to the players. But again, sometimes the manager can also be responsible for setting up the team, how everything is done. Once you see some players who are in form and producing the goods, you do not take them off. And as long as he's learned that lesson, belatedly, be that as it may, that should be enough. But I just hope we can we can do things. I just hope that we can get things over and done.
Yeah, 100%. Because this season somehow at this stage it feels different. I don't know what exactly, but there's a bit of as much as the wheels are falling off since March and till late April, we still managed to somehow stay in the Champions League. We still managed, to be honest, stay on top of the Premier League overall if you look at it. But right now we have increased the gap, and that is something we haven't seen before. Because as soon as we get caught up, we get caught up, overtaken, we stay there. But right now, we have actually taken that step a bit forwards. Let's just put it that way. It feels that way. At the same time, it's not the same city, so it is what it is. But at the end of the day, you can only beat what's in front of you. So you cannot. For me, it's very weird that sometimes people compare, and I've been at fault for doing it at times, like compare this team to like City, Centurions, Klopp's Liverpool, not to mention Ferguson's United or Wenger's Arsenal, because different times, different everything, and the teams were different, and it's a very, very weird one. And since we talked about Arteta and everything, contract, for me, this is the worry part in this all this talk, because this new contract apparently will be offered, but the plan was decided in March, regardless of the season results. Which for me is a bit worrying, because that kind of gives me that indication that despite the fact that we might actually not win it, we would still give Arteta a new deal.
Exactly, and I did say at the beginning when I came on, Rob, that this could very well be what sees us choke the league, because now that Arteta has that job security, We've seen him on many occasions during these last 6 years, just choke at the worst possible time. He gets the security of a new deal no matter what, and you end up seeing a downturn in performances. And I don't want to be the one who, ends up being a doom, a doom merchant or something like that. But we've seen that happen too many times. Our good friend Nastor always talks about pattern recognition, and this could very well be something that, repeats it. I'd like to think that there's something different about this season because, as you said, it's not the same Manchester City. But it's like there have been so many occasions where you see Arteta making the same mistakes again and again and again when it comes to either team selection or how he manages his players, how he manages the situation. And there's a proverb which I really like a great deal. When you make a mistake once, it's, nothing much. When you make it twice, as long as you don't know what you're doing, it's, I suppose, forgivable. But when you make it 3 or more times, it's effectively a decision. And so the impression that one would always get from Arteta is that not only would he fail to learn, he'd refuse to learn in many ways. And that is something that really angers fans like me, fans like you, and everyone else. Because if you have a manager who has, let's get it straight, a really bad talent ID, and who has the intellectual arrogance and stubbornness to not recognize what things are what's going on until it's too late or until the situation dictates they have to make changes, then you have a manager who quite simply doesn't even have a duty of care to the club or even the players. And, in stark contrast, you take a look at the Bournemouth team that are, at least for now, until the end of the season, being managed by his old childhood mate, Andoni Iraola. I mean, they were both in the same youth team back in the Basque region back in the day. And I actually do a lot of work with the Bournemouth fan channel. Shout out to Upper Cherries and all departments, my good friends Craig Beasley and Matthew Harrison. Next week, they're doing a call-in show for the FA Cup final. You might be seeing me there. Maybe I'll put the link in the chat if I can. And, there's a duty of care to the younger players. There's a duty of care to the team. In stark contrast, we're looking at potentially selling Ethan Nwaneri and Miles Lewis-Skelly because since they're, youth players, when you sell them, you end up getting pure profit.
Yeah.
Do we even care at this stage about trying to make sure that we have a successful core of youngsters? And look, I completely agree that youngsters have to earn their right to play for the club and not expect to get there on the basis of their birth certificates. But when you have potential that players that have shown their potential over and over again and who have done well for us, to not even be willing to mold a team, at least partly around them, it's sacrilege. And there is a big fear right now that Max Downer could go the same way. We've already seen Emile Smith-Rowe, be forced out. And, who's to say that Bukayo Saka might end up not being told to go on his way? And then if we lose Ethan Nwaneri and Miles Lewis-Skelly, then what hope is there going to be for our youngsters? And there are some idiots with blogs, mind you, who have the nerve to say that, there comes a time when we need to evolve beyond our youth, and that's why you bring in players like Noni Madueke and Kai Havertz. And I seriously feel like, doing what was, it's funny how people were talking about how, Mikel Arteta deserves to be punched. If I see that idiot with the blog, I literally feel like, giving him a left-handed haymaker, literally. How the hell can you say that signing Noni Madueke and Kai Havertz is evolving beyond our youth players? It's disgusting. Going back to Arteta, we see that he doesn't really care much about our youth. He doesn't seem to care about how the players have been mismanaged. He knows damn well that many of our players have been running on fumes, and somehow, at this stage, they've been given a bit of a second wind. So there is this mentality that whatever success we earn is really serendipity. It's in spite of him and not because of him. And that's another reason why many of us have said that even if he does manage to stutter over the line and win the league, we still might want him gone. And again, we do go back and forth on this because there is a saying that we can't put the gift horse in the mouth. And if you do win, you've got to at least, be given, you have to be given a chance to repeat that success. But then there are some people who will probably be clairvoyant and say, we don't think things are going to get better under him, so let him leave on a high, just like when Spurs sacked Ange Postecoglou after winning the Europa League. So, look, it's completely difficult, and there's a part of me that thinks that if he does win with us, because I'm Arsenal first, I don't want Arteta to fail. I want Arsenal to succeed. And if he does win us, the league, and hopefully a Champions League, yes, he deserves to stay, and yes, I suppose he has to be given his credits. But again, he has to make sure that he justifies being given that confidence. He failed to do that when he won the FA Cup in 2020. We all celebrated, but then the first few seasons after that were just abysmal. And so if he ends up, having a repeat of everything that happened earlier, and he doesn't evolve, he doesn't learn, then I'm sorry, but it just isn't worth it. And so I agree with you that the decision to give him that new contract in March was absolutely stupid and irresponsible. You do not do that unless you have a sort of guarantee that there will be some success. And the best organizations will not continue to put their blind faith and blind trust and throw money at a person who cannot and will not continue to deliver success. It's as simple as that. It's business administration 101.
Yeah, 100%. Quickly, some comments. We can't keep rewarding failure, and that's absolute fact. I think winning the league will give us if we win the league, it definitely is going to give us a massive boost, because that will be weight of the shoulders, and that will just show everything that we can do it. It will show to everyone, and that will be again completely different Arsenal in Champions League final that we would have seen. Let's just say if we will not win the league, which is a very weird thing to even think about. Let's just put it that way at this stage. Havertz has been decent for us. Champions League final, big-time player. Well, we'll see about that one. He has got a good purple patch, to be honest. 23-24 season, second part. But besides that, it's been hella hit and miss. He's been more frustrating than actually anything, to be honest. Especially like that United game last year. That was like the last drop. Like I just cannot. It's absolutely insane. At like missing from 2 yards out, 5 yards out, and everything. To be honest, when we beat City 5-1 as well, he missed like open net pretty much when he was one-on-one with, who was in goal at the time? Ortega, Ederson? I think it was Ederson at Emirates as well. He missed like a golden chance to score. Get me Fabregas. Oh, this is one of those topics I don't want to get into, but I need Fabregas to win stuff. First things first. I'm not a big fan of ex-players becoming Arsenal managers anyways. Like, people are saying, what if, I don't know, Thierry Henry or Patrick Vieira or someone like that. I need them to win majors first. I don't want another unproven kindergarten graduates at the wheel, and then we have to trust the process. I just don't want that at all.
I agree completely. And people talk about how George Graham, came in as a former player and ended up being one of our greatest ever managers. But he cut his teeth at Millwall and won a Football League trophy and also got promoted from the third division. So he at least had won stuff and had some success before coming back to Arsenal. And I agree with you that the Fabregas topic should be, a non-starter. Let him serve his apprenticeship. Let him do good things with Roma. And if we are at a stage where we feel that maybe as a youth player, not someone like Arteta who only came in from Everton, for instance, Fabregas is a youth guy who was born. I think you could say his childhood was split in some ways between Barcelona and Arsenal, but he obviously has a longer history and connection to the club than Mikel Arteta does. But I think Arteta's pretty much ruined it for, ex-players coming back to hopefully manage the club. And I want to go back to that comment that Kirtan made about, Havertz being decent for us, a UCL final big game player. If you remember, a lot of Chelsea fans were actually gleeful when we signed him. Because not only is it another Chelsea player, a Chelsea reject joining our club, but they made it clear that apart from that UCL final goal, Havertz was absolutely, almost non-existent. And when it comes to big game players, he's had his share of big games where he's flopped miserably. Can we pretend that he will turn it on for us in another UCL final? I don't think so.
Nah, definitely not. Big up Kwame.
Hello, Rob. How are you?
Oh, I'm all good. I'm all
good. Hello, man. Manny, how are you?
Yeah, good, brother. How are you doing?
I'm not bad. Rob, as far as I'm concerned, they signed Arteta the contract, yeah? To be honest with you, Rob, Arsenal are a laughing stock now. We are now a laughing stock. You and I know that. I mean, the guy has failed so many attempts, yeah? Hope we could win the Premier League or the Champions League, don't get me wrong. But he failed so many times, yeah? Last season, he should have been sacked. He should have been sacked. Because like you, Rob, like you said, Rob, in any job that you do, and you fuck up, yeah? Excuse my language, yeah? All right, I say you mess up, yeah? You're out the door. I know Rob would sack you if you mess up, or you, Manny, would sack anyone who mess up, right? Full stop. Why Arsenal didn't sack Arteta last season? Why didn't we? You hype it up, oh, he's a top coach, this and that. Well, excuse me, where he just won one FA Cup. Is that it? Well, if you look at the Enriques, you look at the Simones, and you look at also the Flicks, they've won more than him. And I don't want to name someone here. How dare someone had the nerve to say that, oh, Flick is better than Arteta? Excuse me? I'm not, a Flick has won more than Arteta. What are you talking about? Pep has won more than Arteta. Klopp, yeah, who's former Liverpool manager, yeah? And I know the list could go on and on, Rob. You and I know that. I'm saying this, hope we win the Premier League title or the Champions League this season. But in my opinion, he can't lead us to more than he can't lead us to. He can't lead us, yeah. By winning, by saying like a Paisley or a Ferguson, Rob.
Yeah, it's like, and here's the question: like, big up revolutionary part. If they sack him last season, does that guarantee we win this year? No, it doesn't. But also, not sacking him doesn't. Well, at the moment, obviously, hindsight, so to speak, is a beautiful thing. But it also doesn't guarantee that we're going to win this season as well. Like, it's all hit and miss and trial and error and just hope and pray and everything at the end of the day. But
I just want to go, Rob, because if you look at it, Rob, yeah, I'll tell you, they should leave Berta alone. Berta's got sense than Arteta. Berta bought Gokres, and that's why Gokres has been proving well. Look at the amount of rubbish that Arteta bought. Overgaard, Havertz, and so on. They have failed. And Berta just got sense because he's worked before with Simone down at Atletico. He knows what to buy. But Arteta he thinks he knows all. He bought nonsense. And that's why we weren't performing. But I'm telling you this, yeah, that I don't mind being proved wrong, even if we win the Premier League and the Champions League, say this season. But the next season, are we going to retain it, or the following season can we win another? I beg to differ, Rob. Take care of yourself.
Big up, Kwame. Big up. But yeah, to be honest, like it obviously doesn't guarantee anything, no matter how you look at it. Big up Jervis. If Arsenal sack Arteta, who would we replace him with? Leave the coach alone, even if we don't win the Premier League or the Champions League. Like, if he wins one or the other, I'm not gonna lie, I'm fine with him staying because he has proven that he has gotten over the line, especially the Champions League or Premier League. Like, it gives him one more year in my eyes, like that he can go again for the other one, so to speak, type of thing, or for both, like, or for all four. Right, but if he doesn't win anything, like, come on, what are we even doing here in that regard? What are we even doing here in that regard? I'm not gonna lie. Big up Promise, by the way. Big up Gunnar C. I'm not stealing anything, to be honest. I'm not stealing anything here. But I wanted to circle back. I'm a tiny bit on that youth comment you made at Arsenal. By media, it's all pushed by media, apparently, that we are willing to sell Vanieri, Skelly, and all these guys. For me, the nuts part is the fact that what Arsenal will do, most likely, they're going to sign another youngster, the same age, in that position, in my opinion. Which means we basically going to buy a sort of cat in the bag type of situation, and you don't know what you're going to get. How he will develop. Will he work in the Premier League or not? And we might again screw it all up, so to speak, because with Skelly, you know what you're getting. and what he can become, because he has grown our academy. We have molded him, so to speak, in what he is right now, or who he is right now. Same goes with Ethan Vanieri, Max Daumann, and all these brightest prospects that have come through system in the last, well, arguably, decade or so. Let's just put it that way. And players like that don't come through too often. Let's just put it that way. And for me, it's actually kind of insane that people are entertaining the idea and they actually are supporting it to a degree, that we should be selling them. Like, that for me just doesn't add up. Let's just put it that way. Especially if you look at, for example, Leipzig and Diomande. They want about 100 million for him. Why? Like, why would we even get Diomande if we have Daumann, if we have Vanieri and players like that? Why would we even entertain that? But at the end of the day, if we sell, we most likely going to do that because we have Madueke, and now we all know we are not getting rid of him, let's be real. Unless something major happens, we might sign Garnacho in summer since we love the Chelsea players. And then what's going to happen then? Like...
Yeah, you were saying something else, Rob?
No, that was it.
Okay. Yeah, and that's another thing. That sort of circles back to what I was talking about when it comes to the issue of, managers and clubs having a duty of care to our younger players. If you are going to end up signing someone much younger when you already have a good youngster, with you, who needs to be given the chance to develop himself and play some more and realize his potential, rather than simply being being denied his opportunity and then suddenly expected to turn it on when it's needed, and then he ends up getting thrown to the wolves. That's not fair. That's really not the way you'd want to go about things, and it's disgusting if that were to happen. And this is why, again, the reason why we keep harping on about the youth is you only need to take a look in many ways, Rob, at what PSG did. They got rid of the superstar culture and made it clear that they were going to put their faith in some homegrown, or at least, have a stronger French core in their team. So they said goodbye to Messi, they said goodbye to Neymar, they said goodbye to Mbappe, and it bore fruit when they won the Champions League last season. And one of the more experienced members of that Champions League campaign was also ruthlessly given the boot. And now, of course, he's at Manchester City. So the big the thing is, you need to make sure that you have that kind of core. It's all very well saying, and as I said before, I do agree that youngsters have to earn their right to play regularly and not expect to get in on the basis of their birth certificates. But when you basically make it crystal clear that you are shutting the doors on them, you're not really having that much of a duty of care to them. You're expecting them to continue to work a little bit harder with the youth team, with the reserves, and you just don't want to show any kind of faith in them. And that's not the way to go about it. And whenever we've had our more successful phases in recent or even ancient history, we've always had a strong local core, and most of those players have been players who, come from the academy. And so if you aren't willing to stay true to that, then you are not, living up to the identity of the club. That's just the way I would look at it. And so, I really don't want to see a situation where we are forced to sell our youngsters and then we end up, buying this, this flavor of the month youngster who we end up playing and expect him to do quite well. And if this youngster ends up getting injured, we're back at square one. So everything about the whole management structure at Arsenal is just so rotten. I won't necessarily go so far to say that we're a joke, but again, going back to Bournemouth, they have many of their players who have, joined the club as a youngster and have developed well, and their young central defender, James Hill, has already been given plenty of games to play this season. He's developed very well, and he's been one of his club's players of the season. And so at Bournemouth and the likes of Brighton and Brentford, they're going to develop younger players to make them, Premiership proven, and then they sell them for a more than decent price. But at least they'll have gotten their chances. It's like we're ending up selling some of our younger players without really giving them the chances and the confidence to really go further. And then we end up adopting this narrative that if a player gets sold and joins another club, which may not be at our level, that's the level where they belong. No, I disagree. I've seen enough Smith Rowe, for example, to know how good a player he was with us. And with a greater deal of care, greater duty of care, he would actually have grown and evolved into a better player. I think it's fair to say that his decision to move to Fulham instead of Aston Villa, where he could have linked up again with Unai Emery, might go down as a mistake, because Emery was able to bring out the best in him, and he brought out the best in a lot of players that were playing under him at the time. So it's just horrible the way things are going, and yet some fans just don't. They refuse to see the bigger picture because they're so madly in love with Arteta, and they believe that the success that we have earned so far is all down to him. No, it's not. It's taken us 6 seasons, so much money spent, and if we end up with nothing, especially if we end up bottling this league to the worst Manchester City team since the days of the likes of Mark Hughes when he was managing the club, that is unforgivable. And so that's another reason why we can't afford to keep him. I want to see us win trophies because, as I said, I'm team first, but we cannot look beyond these issues that are currently plaguing the club with regard to how the squad is being managed. I don't know if you concur with that.
Yeah, I'm just looking. I was reading yesterday as well that that Krupi guy from, as you mentioned, your Bournemouth, right? He has had they call it as a breakout season for such a kid at a young age, so to speak. I can get it, but they don't want to sell him at any cost. Best case scenario, 100 million. And they will find that, well, I just put it that way, an idiot who is going to pay that without shadow of a doubt. Unfortunately, somebody is going to pay that to a certain degree. Let's just put it that way. And Krupi looks very promising, but to pay 100 million, just like, as I said, Leipzig won for Monday, 100 million. Like, make it make sense. Like, seriously, because I don't know where these prices are getting at. Soon you literally will buy an under 15 kid for 200 million just because of something, rather. He gave a backheel pass. Like, it doesn't add up to me because they haven't proven anything, so to speak, to a degree, because sometimes these one season wonders are the ones that usually go for this money, and well, we have seen how that goes for most of the time, and it never happens good. Let's just put it that way. And yeah, we were talking about, as you were, about Ethan Manieri, that he got short end of the stick, so to speak, as Revolutionary Pod said. And it is a bit of annoying that if we win Premier League, well, he gets nothing because he doesn't even get the medal. He hasn't played. He hasn't done anything in that regard. And he would have been very good for us in the second part of the season. And your thoughts of this, because I wanted him 2 years ago, I wanted him last year, I wanted us to sign either Fabian Ruiz or Ederson over Merino. Atalanta midfielder who won the Europa League. That guy.
Yeah, I was never really. I mean, there was a part of me that was impressed with Merino's ability to, chip in with some important goals. And if you remember, it was that golden goal against Germany in the Euros quarterfinal that helped Spain overcome the host and then go on to win it all at England's expense in the final. But when you see a guy like him, we end up signing a lot of these players, Rob, that seem to make a few really important contributions and have some, big moments, and then do, sweet bugger all apart from that. And Merino, sadly, just fits into that category. We don't really see how he's able to, dominate the game or take the game by the scruff of the neck. And sadly, Zubamendi, we all know how he started the season with that absolutely brilliant strike against Nottingham Forest. But since then, in the Premiership, he's been found out. And, he was signed in many ways. I think it's fair to say that the likes of Zubamendi and Merino were signed to improve our dynamic play in Europe. But in the Premiership, it's a lot more aggressive, it's more up and tumble. And certain players who just don't have that level of physicality, they are going to get found out. So Ederson would definitely have been a good option. And, who was the other player you said you wanted? I didn't catch that.
Fabian Ruiz.
Fabian Ruiz.
We were
Yes,
linked with
well-
him at the time, vaguely, when we signed Merino.
Yes,
summer.
and never mind. Fabian Ruiz obviously is a fine player too, and he, could certainly have added a great deal. I think he was also a big part of PSG's Champions League win. But another player who we potentially could have signed is the London boy Ademola Lookman, who was also, like Edison, a part of that Europa League winning side with Atalanta. Although he was somewhat muted in the way when we played him in the semi-final. I think maybe he wasn't 100% fit, but there has been enough of him to make people see that he could have been in many ways an asset. And when you consider how much money we've thrown at certain players who quite frankly aren't up to it, it's like, where exactly is the recruitment heading? And how much are we so, fiscally irresponsible that we are prepared to throw these insane sums of money at players who are so damn inconsistent? It's maddening. Because it's like, again, as I've said, these players we've signed have proven to be moments players more than anything else. And they'll have a few really good moments where, they're the flavour of the month. And then they do sweet bugger all afterwards. I don't know if you watch much legendary British comedy, but if you're a fan of Monty Python, it's a little bit like, they remind me of Graham Chapman in a way. Whenever they would have these meetings to talk about these sketches, he'd stay silent, saying, sweet bugger all, sipping his gin and tonic and smoking on his pipe. Then all of a sudden he'll come up with something so inspired and so crazy, and they end up going with that. And that was how the Dead Parrot sketch came into, existence. But many people would say that he had so much comic ability and was a brilliant sounding board. But as a worker, he was just, he was just lazy. He was unpunctual. He was a poor person with whom to work, and he had to be, sent back to the factory and given a proper fixing. And you see the same thing right now with someone like Noni Madueke, who has some good qualities. He does take a very good corner, which really fizzes in with his left foot and gives goalkeepers all sorts of problems. He can shoot from outside the area if he wants to. But apart from that, whenever he plays on the right, he reminds me so much of Adama Traore. He runs and runs all the live long day, but can't put in the proper cross to save his life. So, and Marino is the same thing. We tried him as a false nine, but then we almost quickly discarded that experiment. So it's like, where exactly are we going, and what are we doing with our recruitment? Are we really serious about getting some proper players who are willing to, improve our squad and really add that extra dimension, especially with Arteta in charge? I don't know. And again, no managing team or recruitment team is perfect. You take a look at Unai Emery. He hit gold when he signed Morgan Rogers and a few others, but he has had some recruitment issues, especially signing the likes of Evan Gesson and Harvey Elliott this season. Heck, even Alex Ferguson, the great Sir Alex Ferguson, had his own share of, transfer duds. I mean, Massimo Taibbi, Cleverson, Eric Jemba, so nice.
Everyone has those, to be honest. It just
Arsene Wenger. We could have gotten N'Golo Kante, but we signed Granit Xhaka. And I end with that.
Yeah, to be honest, Emery at Arsenal as well, he didn't get any of the players he wanted. Wanted Zaha, got Pepe. He wanted Fabinho from Monaco at the time, he got Lucas Torreira, and so on, and so on, and so on. Like, big... Barcola or Kvaratskhelia? This is a weird one because obviously Kvaratskhelia by a mile, first things first. How we didn't have 62, 63 million euros for Kvaratskhelia in winter, but half a year later we have 52 million pounds for Madueke. Go figure that one out. Let's just put it that way. But there are some rumors that Arsenal are looking at Barcola for the left wing spot. Would you be okay with that, or would you explore other options? Because obviously there is still part of the fan base that want the infamous Nico Williams, who I don't want to see anywhere near this club personally. And, well, anymore, like, Semenyo is gone. Like, there are not many options. Goulet as well, apparently he might stay, or Real Madrid are looking at him for some weird goddamn reasons. Who knows? So, would you take Barcola?
Oh, I would. I mean, there are a couple of I mean, you take a look at someone like a Gonzalo Ramos, who was, the next big thing back in the day, but who's been marginalised a little bit. I actually think that the likes of Barcola and, Ramos and one or two others in that PSG team would benefit from leaving the Parisians and going to other clubs and other managers who can, respect their talents and get the best out of them. Forget about joining, Arsenal if Mikel Arteta is there, because he'll, suck the talent out of them. Hopefully, Arteta will learn his lesson with someone like a Barcola and make sure he plays on the left, because, Gabriel Martinelli, let's get this straight. He is at his best when he is, an off-the-shoulder striker. He was scoring goals under Unai Emery. You ask him to be a touchline-hugging winger, it's like playing with your head down, trying your best to get past the right back. And we've seen him get shut down on many, many occasions, including against Bournemouth when the right back was starting there for Bournemouth. That right back literally had Martinelli on toast. And I think Martinelli's best days are gone. He needs to join a club where, he will be used in his best position.
Martinelli got shut down by a 37-year-old Ashley Young against Everton, and he got shut down by a 18-year-old Serbian center-back who played right back against Villa last season as well. Like, he doesn't, for a Brazilian, he is awfully bad with skills, I'm not gonna lie, so to speak.
Yeah, but if you take a look with Brazil, even Ancelotti uses him as a striker. I don't think he's
exactly.
So you have a manager in Arteta whose tactical sense and ideologies are so arse backwards, it's scary. But if you use Barcola correctly, knowing that Barcola is a left winger, he would be a perfect replacement for both Martinelli and Trossard, who I think will be sold. If I had to choose which one to keep for maximum one more season to aid the transition for Barcola, I probably would keep Trossard, because although, he is getting on a bit and there's a bit of a diddly-doddly play, as Kenny Ken would say, you just know that he has, he can come up with some moments of technical brilliance.
But he's very inconsistent, isn't he?
Exactly. And that's the thing. His value would be more the super sub. So unpredictable, but you can bring him off the bench and he'd, do something for you. And Martinelli has done the same thing as a super sub, but we can't afford to keep two super subs in the same.
But Martinelli has, to be honest, fair play to Martinelli that he has been actually quite, I don't want to say exceptional, but very goddamn good for us in Champions League. Just wish it translated to the Premier League as well. But obviously, different style, different football, different everything, and it just, for him, it's not working out, unfortunately. Because in Champions League, we look at Martinelli and it feels kind of refreshing. But again, it's 8 games now, and then elimination stages. In Premier League, it's a 38-week meat grinder, and he just is not cut out for it anymore. Because 22-23 season, when we have seen the best of Martinelli, the best of Martin Odegaard as well, that was football we played like in Europe. Like against European teams, very open, very, very quick, direct, and everything. And I kind of refuse to believe that our players are as bad as we are seeing them in the Premier League. I absolutely refuse, because if we set 22-23 season as a benchmark, they just cannot be this bad. Like, the Odegaard cannot be that bad. As much as I want Odegaard gone, he cannot be that bad. Same goes for Martinelli as well. But obviously, different styles, different opponents, different systems. They absolutely now pack everything, and they have no wiggle room to do, to be honest, anything as well.
And that's the thing. Like, see, Rob, I'm going to say this right now. There are certain players who, reach their zenith with the club at a certain period of time. But then once they start to lose a bit of form and confidence, and you see it's been sucked out of them, and they're not as effective as you want them to be, the right thing to do is basically move them on. And that is what the top clubs do. The top clubs are ruthless enough to know when it's the right time to sell a player, when a player, is pretty much past his meridian and it's time to move on and move the team forward. There are some cases where, we may think it's not really warranted. And I've seen some cases where players have been very undeservedly moved on, very undeservedly shafted. But at the end of the day, you have to sort of keep the faith that these such decisions are taken with the club's interests at heart. You take a look at Aston Villa, for example, and I'm sorry for continuing to talk about them because this is an Arsenal fan chat. But of course, they are managed by a former Arsenal manager, and they do have a former Arsenal goalkeeper, who was the last goalkeeper to win a major trophy with us, by the way. Sorry, Aaron Ramsdale, the Community Shield does not count. It's a glorified friendly. And that Aston Villa team, mind you, that has just reached the final of the Europa League and which will secure Champions League qualification by the league stage, they will beat Burnley on Sunday. 12 players in that club, Rob, were there at the club when Dean Smith was managing. And that's taking you all the way back to the 2018-2019 season, when Aston Villa earned promotion to the Premier League after being relegated in 2016. Dean Smith got that team playing so brilliantly. He rejuvenated, reshaped the team, and it paid dividends for him. You think of the likes of John McGinn, the likes of Ezri Konsa.
Didn't we lose to them 4-1 at home?
No, we beat them 4-1 at home. We beat them 4-1.
No, not this season. Back. Didn't we lose when Benteke scored and all these men scored? Or am I thinking too far in the past already?
That's too far in the past, because ever since they got re-promoted, I mean, ever since they came back, I think they have had their share of wins at Villa Park ahead of at our expense, but not as big. They actually beat us 3-0 at the Emirates during that COVID season when Emmy came back to the Emirates as an Aston Villa player. But the thing is, like, you take a look at players like John McGinn, the captain, Tyrone Mings, Ezri Konsa, the vice-captain, Douglas Luiz, Tammy Abraham, who was on loan from Chelsea. They were a big part of that Premier League Premiership promotion season. And then afterwards, they signed the likes of Ollie Watkins, Matthew Cash, Emi Buendia, Emi Martinez, Lamane Bajada. And then, you think of more people. Leon Bailey is another one, Ross Barkley. So that's your 12 Smith-era players right there. And they've been at the club for so long now, and they've, played their part in seeing Villa rise up again to become a top European team once again, and they should win a European title, which will be the fitting way to end this. But after the season, you have to expect that group will be broken up. Several players like Bailey and Mings and others will just be determined that they are now surplus to requirements and they need new challenges elsewhere. And there are some players who I hope will stay on for at least one more season so they can have a crack at the Super Cup, another crack at the Champions League. But then that's an example of how a team needs to evolve. And Aston Villa, due to PSR issues, they haven't had that much success at being able to recruit the players that they would like because, their finances have been tight.
So we'll have to sell like Rodgers or someone just to comply with all that. I wonder what they're also going to do with Daniel Malen once he comes back this summer.
No, I think Daniel Malen will probably be sold, and more's the pity because that chap's a baller. I mean, when he came to Aston Villa, I was thinking to myself, this is a guy who definitely can, play really well coming in on the wing and score some really good goals. Villa had a gem. And he was a youth player with us, don't forget, back in the days when
he
Eddie
used to be an Arsenal player. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. And then he went to Roma this season on loan, and
he's balling out there like crazy.
Yeah, and Gasperini has him playing very well in a good system there, 3-4-2-1, where he's sort of the attacking midfield, the two-man pivot, and also coming in and scoring goals. That's the best system he can possibly play. And I think they'll probably have to sell Daniel Malen. Unless they can promise him Champions League football and promise him that he will be a part of it and not make the mistake that they did in 24-25, they will have to sell him. And they will have to sell, a few other assets. You mentioned Morgan Rodgers. If Emi Martinez ends up, I'd like Emi to stay for one more season for their sake, but if a big club comes in for him and offers big money for him, neither he nor the club will be able to, refuse that. So you see over there, there's also going to be a time when they're going to have to break up the team and start evolving. But they're going to need more money and more revenue coming in. And that's why regular European qualification and winning silverware will be important for them. At least with us, we're getting more revenue coming in. We have, so much money coming in. We're drowning in money because, we're such a world-renowned club.
The books are going to be so much in profits about this season and everything. It's going to be disgusting.
Yes. Agreed, but the problem is as well, that comes with pitfalls because we're throwing so much money to sign players who, quite frankly, aren't at the levels. And Kenny Penn said in another stream we did, and that was the stream we did with the Bournemouth fan channel, that we might have to face a tax bill. We will have our own concerns about PSI in the near future. And we might end up making the same mistakes that clubs like Juventus did back in the day. So who's to say that our bubble won't be burst at some time in the future? So we've also got to be careful. We've got to be careful as well here.
But that's why they want to sell your Skellies and Wanyeris, because that is going to help with that, so to speak. We're going to make money on Martinelli if we sell him, because making money on 7 million signing, come on. That should be a piece of cake. I would assume we're going to make if we somehow sell Odegaard, we're going to make money on him. But we'll have to take massive loss on Kai Havertz, without shadow of a doubt. With those 280 grand a week and everything, who's going to even take him? Jesus is going to go for a loss. It's going to all even itself out, more or less, at the end of the day. But we need to be careful, because last summer as well, how much did we spend? 300 million, something weird like that. Or 200 million. 200 million, I think. Eze, Zubimendi, that's 110. Gyökeres, 170. Hincapié was on loan. Oh yeah, Hincapié, he's going to be signed this summer. So that again it's already 45 million in negative numbers instantly, without any questions asked. So we will have to again balance it all out. So we definitely will need to sell at least 3, 4, maybe even players before we actually can start properly going into market. And again, if we do it like we always do and leave it for late, it's gonna bite us in the ass in one way or the other, as we usually do. Usually does. Yeah. So my hope, this is the summer where all eyes will be on Andrea Berta, I think. Who he's gonna sell, for how much he's going to sell, who he's gonna sign for how much. And for me, one of the that for me is more I'm more interested in the summers about who he's gonna sell and for how much. That for me somehow at the moment is more exciting, because we have been starved so long for purple sales that even seems like Wolves and every single Premier League team almost has bigger sales than Arsenal, like top sale, not even to mention some other ones. And I would like to also see Arsenal dip into free agent market at some point, because we never do that. And there usually are, well, most of the time, some really good gems, so to speak, maybe experienced veterans or some proper rotational players that we could get potentially. But we never utilized that. And looking at how Andrea Berta was operating at Atletico Madrid, I have some hopes for that as well.
Yeah, but again, I like the free market idea. That is what clubs like Aston Villa end up doing, securing a free transfer. That's why they're looking for, Harry Wilson to come in to join them from Fulham, especially if it means having to, get rid of Leon Bailey and a few others. Daniel Marlin will be sold. Harry Wilson coming in wouldn't be a bad idea. Of course, Harvey Elliott, that loan deal with Liverpool was a big bomb, and, it's a tragedy what's happened to the guy. But free market agency isn't too bad an idea. I think there is an issue, though, Rob, with free agents, because whatever money you may save on sign-on fees, you end up having to pay. Yeah, the salary may also be a little bit of an issue. Take someone like a Casemiro, for instance. I would personally say that his days at the top level would be over and done with, because he's going to leave Manchester United. I see him retiring from international football after the World Cup with Brazil. And so he may decide to either play out his career in a lower league, or he may go back to Brazil to try and
Brazil or Saudis, maybe.
No, I think low key the Saudi league might end up going bust very soon, because there are some issues obviously with the current political situation in the Middle East, the war with Iran and so forth.
Yeah.
And so many of these Saudi-backed sports ventures. If you take a look at LIV Golf, for instance. They actually had one of their biggest Saudi benefactors pull the plug on them quite recently. And so some of those breakaway golfers who left the PGA Tour might have to, grovel to get back on the PGA Tour. They buttered their bread, and now they want to, avoid repercussions. Tell them. But Saudi probably won't be an option. But someone like a Casemiro, for instance, could be a really good free agent option for, a mid-table club or a club with a little bit more in terms of ambition. If he still feels that he can, contribute, you could go for it. But again, certain free agents, especially if they're at that stage of their career, will have to accept, salary cuts or
Bernardo
what have you.
Silva.
Yes, with him. And, there's a reason why Manchester City let certain players go, because those players have, pretty much passed their meridian. we brought Gabby Jesus from City, and he was scoring goals in his first season, but then he had that injury, and he was never the same since. The less said about Alexander Zinchenko, the better. I mean, that guy was responsible for Kieran Tierney's time at Arsenal being cut short. I loved that Scottish left back. He was so wonderful for us. But then again, and that's what I'm saying, with free agency, it's like it won't always be free in that regard. There will be some, externalities that come with it. But if it does fit the purpose, and if you can trust it to do a job, I say, you could always go for it. But sometimes you have to be a little bit careful when it comes to free agents.
Yeah, 100%. Like
free agents.
For me, that is it's a very interesting topic in terms of free agents, because this summer there could be quite good ones, so to speak. Like Senesi, there is obviously Harry Wilson who got mentioned, Silva, Vlahovic, Konate, Goretzka. There are quite a few, technically speaking. Let's just put it that way. But is it worth taking a gamble on certain players and everything? The salaries, they might actually they're gonna be bloated salaries without shadow of a doubt, signing on fees, agent fees, and everything. And there will be multiple clubs looking at them, so there's definitely price are gonna go. The salary is gonna skyrocket at some stage. It's a very hit and miss type of situation. We saw, for me, how PSG did that with Ramos, Messi, and who else did they sign on a free? Donnarumma, I think it was for free, or wasn't it? There was 3 players they signed for free. Asensio? I don't remember. They signed 3 players on free agents, which felt like something ludicrous, and it obviously didn't work out. Real Madrid are doing that. They did that with Rudiger, did that with Mbappe, but in terms of salary, what they're getting and how much it is costing them long term, is it really worth it, so to speak, technically speaking? Because it doesn't look that way. So it's a very hit and miss type of situation, depending on who you get and for what purpose you're getting them. It really strictly depends on that. But yeah, I think on this note, we actually might end the stream. Let's just put it that way. Big up Money for coming on. It is a pleasure to having you on the stream.
Pleasure to be on.
You have anything in plans? Like,
specifically, what do you mean?
Like going on other channels or something like that where people can see you?
Well, I do know that. I mean, there was actually a comment in your chat where someone asked you if you were stealing Aaron's call-in show for tonight. Aaron Talks Arsenal is actually having a little bit of a chat right now where he's talking about some other issues. I just mentioned, your call-in show, so hopefully a few people in the chat can, catch this on playback and show you a bit of love, and hopefully, they'll join in another call-in show. But I don't really have a channel of my own. I do go on other streams, and I'm really happy to make sure that I support, some channels if they need to be bigged up, and that's why I'm really, privileged to be the first. And again, if this is your first call-in show, it's a privilege to be the first one to come on and talk to you. And I only hope that, you weren't frustrated with me for, talking for too long at times.
No, all good. The people need to get it out. People want to talk, and it's understandable. Everyone has their opinions, want to be discussed, and everyone wants to have their voice heard, so to speak. Let's just put it that way. It's amazing because as many heads, that many opinions, and they're never going to be the same. They might align in some instances, but they're definitely going to be differences, and that is the beauty of football. It's like everyone has an opinion, and it's up for discussion. Let's just put it that way. There is no right opinion, so to speak. Let's just put it that way. It sounds very weird because we are very strict in our opinions on certain things, but at the same time, it's up for discussion. It's a subjective opinion, no matter how you look at it.
Yeah, the most important thing is to, keep an open mind and be open to debate. But if you see some nonsense being said, then you have to make sure that you call them out and, be articulate on it. That's one of the things that I try to do. I don't like, I try not, as much as I may be a bit of a knobby git at times, one thing which you won't see me do, Rob, is, force myself in and shut people's arguments down. I let people, articulate what they want to say and let them land. And then I have my say. The one thing which I don't like is having people shutting me down. So I love the fact that you and I were able to have a discussion like this. And that is the way streams should be maintained. Hopefully, when you have more than 2 or 3 people coming on at a time, that level of courtesy and decorum will be maintained. But that's the most important thing. At the end of the day, we all, whether or not we like Arteta, we all love Arsenal. We all love to succeed. We just see things a little bit differently. There are a few things which I may not like about the fan base. Sometimes we have the most arrogant and entitled attitude. We lack any level of grace or magnanimity towards opponents who may play better than us on the day. I get that football may be tribal, but there's always an unwritten code where what you give out, you get back to you. And if you refuse to be gracious or magnanimous or sportive towards your opponents in victory or defeat, don't be surprised if they despise you and want to see you fail. Sadly, that's a lesson that many of our fans just refuse to heed. What say you on that?
Yeah, you get back what you give out at the end of the day. And I think that's one of the biggest issues when I watch maybe on X or on TikTok or somewhere I read the comments or whatever. People like to dish it out, but when they get it back, they just absolutely cannot take it. And that's how all these things start when you hear, I cannot stand this fan base and everything. And unfortunately, that is the case, that one person basically, to a degree, it shouldn't be that way, but it is kind of labels the whole fan base. And that's how all these issues begin, basically, all these arguments and all these instances, which is annoying, but unfortunately, that's how world works to a degree. So basically, so to speak, be yourself and just be grateful for what you have, and don't do anything to anyone you would not want to receive back. I'll just put it that way.
Whenever I do streams, mate, that's what I always say. Don't do anything I wouldn't do, and do unto others as you'd have others do unto you. You and I are so in sync. I love it. Let's do it again sometime.
Oh, 100%. Big up for coming on, people. Like the stream, subscribe if you're new, and see you guys very, very, very well. See you on Sunday. Let's just put it that way. Not tomorrow, unfortunately. But yeah, my daughter's birthday, so I definitely won't stream. So I see.
By the way,
all...
Rob, are we following each other on Instagram? By the way,
Should be.
I'll check it.
Should be. Okay. Big up, everyone. Big up. Peace.